Journey to Truth is going to Hawaii. Join us in 2026 for Journey to Truth's first ever vacation conference on the Big Island at the beautiful Queen Emma Community Center in Kona. Enjoy Hawaii as we travel to sacred sites and connect with our Lemurian past and reactivate the land. It's time to get our bodies moving and take a boots on the ground approach to the awakening. We'll also be making a trip to Volcano National Park to pay our respect to Pele, the goddess of fire. We'll then journey to the water for an ocean adventure with our multi-dimensional aquatic family. We'll gear up and head to the harbor as we set sail under the sun for an activating day on the water while we experience the Hawaiian ocean life like never before. Enjoy Hawaiian sunsets and walks on the beach while connecting with soul family and learning a few things from our amazing lineup of speakers. Aloha! Grab your ticket today at journeytotruth.online and join us for this once-in-a-lifetime activating getaway.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. A few things before we get started. Just a reminder, our documentary private screening premiere is happening in Sedona on January 9th at the Mary Fisher Theater. I think there may only be like 3 seats left, if any. So if anyone's interested to see our documentary before it's released publicly on Amazon Prime and wherever else we can get it, tickets are only $15, and if you're in the Sedona area and don't want to miss it and want to be part of it, it's going to be a private screening, and some of the people that are in the movie are actually going to be there. We're going to do a live Q&A afterwards, and if you don't know, it's based around the Secret Space Program, and the reality for that's basically building a case for the Secret Space Program, and just the entire idea is to expand people's minds and reach the skeptics and bridge that gap and help people understand that there's really something going on there. So if you're interested, you can find those tickets at journeytotruth.online below. Also, our conference in Hawaii in April is coming up way sooner than we thought. It's right around the corner, and April 20th through the 24th. And if you're interested in joining us for 5 days on the Big Island, we would love to have you there. Tickets are very limited, so I would take advantage of that and grab one while you can. If you buy one before Black Friday, you get entered into a chance to win $200 discount on your ticket. So take advantage of that. All of that information is also available at journeytotruth.online. And today we are joined by a returning guest, Beth Rachel. She is an intuitive channel, experiencer, and starseed, and we've had her on episode 240. If anyone wants to go back and watch that, it was a really good episode, and if you just kind of gives, it's a better introduction to her. Today we're going to get into some newer stuff, so if you want to go back and kind of get the whole story, you can do that. But today we're going to get into some deconstructing mind control, exposing Bohemian Grove. She lives near there, and she's had some experiences she'd like to share, along with some messages she's been getting about what's coming in the next few months and some shifts and how to prepare for that. So there's a lot to cover today, but we're excited to have you back. Beth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be back. Yeah, kind of like poked my head out a few years ago, and I didn't fully come out and keep going. So I'm feeling more ready now, and so reinitiating.
Well, that's good that you honor that process, though, because sometimes we think we're ready to talk and share our experiences, but there's still healing to do and stuff to work through. And it's not necessarily healthy to be sharing information that you haven't necessarily worked through, and I think that what you've done is the best approach because now you're not perpetuating any trauma that's still there. You can approach it from a much healthier place, and you feel comfortable about talking about these things instead of reliving those experiences. So I appreciate that. And I think that there's a lot to get into today. And one of the things that we were just talking about before we went live is starseeds. So, you call yourself a starseed, as many people do. including myself, I think that we all have extraterrestrial DNA in us, and I think that's what a starseed means. But I have seen that there seems to be this movement online where people are talking about starseeds were created by the government, and they think it's a government program, and it's like this demonic thing, and blah 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 blah. All the whole nine yards. So I think that's concerning because people are believing that. A large number of Christians, in particular, are believing that. So, what are your thoughts on starseeds, what they are, and how this program is trying to hijack that?
Yeah. Um, uh, well, this is the first I'm hearing of that is from you, and I have a quick question before I answer. Uh, are they saying that the program that created the starseeds is demonic, or this program created demons and they're calling them starseeds?
So the whole concept is that aliens are demons, and
Okay.
then the people that believe they're star seeds have been essentially MK Ultra'd by some secret government program to give them false memories and trick them into believing that they have an ET lineage and that they're like from somewhere else, right? And obviously the government would love for us to believe it was all them and it's not really happening. But I just didn't know if you had any opinions on that.
Oh, yeah. Sure. So I'm gonna just take a moment, to get all of my opinions in order.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And so I just kind of throw that at you out of left field. I know we weren't planning on talking about that, but it just came up.
No, yeah, and I think it's great, to talk about it if it's coming up. That's what we're here for, right? Things come up so they can come out, and, I think that's a big part of what you guys do. So it makes sense, I think
Right.
it's fitting. I just wanted to take a moment to center with it, and, what I kinda said before we started still stands true, which is I think that there's always a counter move, um that the government has. And, I think that false memory implantation and the whole theory behind it, um, not theory, but the practice, there's like a practice, and then um, there's a use of it as a dismissive to victims. And it started, um, I think kind of coming into like common culture when people were coming forward regarding being molested and wanting to file suit against their perpetrators. And they were like, oh, you're remembering it wrong. It's a false memory. Something else happened and you're putting this person's face on it. And therapists got involved. And so
Right.
victims were further victimized. So take that one step further, right? It's a tactic that we could say the dark, to kind of use all encompassing kind of forces, uses to dismiss and diminish truth telling and sharing. And I would always encourage people with any information to come into your heart and come into your body, and how the feel in your heart and your body. Like, does that feel good? Does that feel, because if it doesn't feel good, then there's something that's not in alignment. Um, so, when I feel into that message about star seeds, of course I can also like tap into something else. And I think that there's a huge right now crusade to use Christianity. There's a huge manipulation coming forward, and Charlie Kirk is a good representation of that. And there's some other things. There are some people within the New Age movement that have, in the last 10 years or so, switched over to Christianity and Jesus being their savior. And there's a big program going on that has been for a really long time. Anything that's not related to Jesus is then demonic. And the funny thing is that there are a lot of ritual satanic cults embedded within Christianity.
Right.
So
Oh,
they're
yeah.
covering their own asses basically by projecting it onto something else, right? Is part of what we could say about this. And the other thing I would say is that, things like Project Looking Glass, when they were being used, a lot of what they were used for was to look into the future, to see things coming, so they could create countermeasures ahead of time, and programs ahead of time to then release If this happens, contingency plans, right? And it's like contingency plan upon contingency. So this happens, then we can do this. And then if this happens, then we can do this. And so they looked at all the sort of the variables to counter the awakening process of humanity. So to me, this is kind of just like a new one,
Yeah.
like, oh, let's make it so that the starseeds are actually demons. And those of you that, are on that ship, then you're wrong. And actually, it's like, okay, before that, the earth is flat. And okay, no, we're living under a dome. And it's like, okay,
Right.
what's next? The dolphins are actually, dinosaurs who are, possessed by demons. I'm going to say that. And then somebody's probably going to be like, Beth thinks this, it's like,
Right. Right.
my point being like, it's whatever to try to throw us off and try to throw us out of alignment with our heart, with our truth, and with the continued journey of waking up, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that was wonderfully. I love the way you answered that.
Well
You
said.
wonderfully
Okay.
answered. Well said. Yeah. No,
Yes, I feel like I was stumbling.
No, I agree. I think that, obviously it's, to me, it's when you do the research and you look into the stuff and feel into your heart, of course, extraterrestrials have been here. There's a whole history there. I mean, there's so many people that have experiences. It only makes sense that, we are much more than we've been told. And our DNA is comprised of so much more, so many more races. And I think that groups within the private sector probably know that, and they're able to track which star systems we come from. But if we start figuring that out, that's not okay because they can't control that. So this makes perfect sense that they would, they want to hijack that narrative and take all the credit for it. Oh, you're not really a starseed. That was us. We're geniuses. We put that in your head. No.
Yeah.
Right. And ultimately
Right.
another avenue for further divisiveness.
Yeah.
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 So, yeah, absolutely. Starseeds are real. Absolutely. So many of us are not only carrying that DNA with us, but have memories from other systems. I think, and maybe a nicer thing, if you really want to only believe in Christianity, then it's like, well, the starseeds are actually just angels. Let's go that route rather than
Right.
let's call them demons.
Notice how they always go the demon route. They never go. That's the tell sign right there. Everything outside of the box, the prescribed little box that you're in any religion, everything outside of it, they never give it. If they're going to give it a blanket or they're going to give it something, they never go a positive route. It's always 100% evil. It's always demon. It's always because it's a threat to that narrative
Or
and
their
it's
belief
scary, and it's
system.
fear of the unknown as well, right?
And it's a threat to the belief system that they've identified with. And then
And
it's
their identity that they've tied to that belief
Right.
system. Right.
So then at that point, are you only attracting people into your life that share that same belief? Therefore, it's further validating your beliefs, and then you're living in this consensus reality with this people where that is true. Now, it takes this a whole nother level, but we don't have to go there. It's multi-layered. It's just a whole multi-dimensional reality, and there are many dimensions to what's happening here to us individually as well.
Yeah, I think another way of saying that, that we don't have to go into a bunch of dimensions is just like, where are you in your denial process? Like, if
Right.
you still have this much denial, then you're going to attract people who have this much denial and validate it. If you're afraid of, pushing that envelope, then you're going to attract people that are going to stay in that envelope with you because that's your comfort zone. So
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then this would be the perfect segue. It would be the perfect segue into deconstructing mind control, something that you've been wanting to talk about because this is actually very important right now. Many people, unfortunately, I mean, all the humanity at large has been mind controlled, right? And the only way to truly awaken is to deprogram that. So I'll just turn it over to you and let you share what was on your heart about that because it's important.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things was I, wanted to really kind of deconstruct it, which part of that is talking about being able to deprogram it, but break it down. I think for me, there's a lot of people who really have a lot of fear when they hear, the word mind control, or maybe that somebody's been mind controlled. It brings up a lot of fear for people. So part of my intention is just in shedding some light to hopefully alleviate some of that, and yeah, sorry, I was just thinking about whether or not to share something, but uh, absolutely, I would start by saying the entire world is under mind control, right? I mean, even just what we just talked about, the star seeds or demons, like that is actually, I mean, that is a mind control program. It's a group mind control program, and it's done on a mass scale, but it's being put out in several different ways. If you're already receiving it, that means it went out in a frequency. It means it went out through words. It means it probably was programmed into someone, right? In order
Mhm.
for them to be sharing it, which could have happened in various ways, which we can talk about in a minute. But so there are the whole world, the way I see it is like the whole world has a certain level of mind control. And we could refer to that as the matrix, even though the matrix has like other components to it. And some people would say it's just energetic. Some people would say there's physical components, but it's basically a mass mind control. Because we're living in a reality where we are told what is possible rather than tapping into our infinite connection as a spark of infinite light, right? I'll refrain from using, religious terms, but we're particles of energy. We're all part of source, all part of creation. But we're living in a reality that tells us there's limitations to it. So that's where the control matrix starts. That's where the program starts. And then we're told certain things about it from there. And then that goes into different systems. That goes into our educational system. That goes into our political system. That goes into our government, into our food systems. All of our systems are built on what we're told is true. And I'm starting, obviously, a lot of people already know all this, right? But that's like what we read in our history book, what we watch on TV, what we're told through the radio, through the media. It's all fed to us so that we're constantly in this field. So there's a vibration to it, there's a frequency to it, there's words to it, right? So we're all kind of moving around being told this is your reality. This is your reality.
Mhm.
That is my
Don't question it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just believe it.
Right. So that is mind control.
Mhm.
Then you can take that further and it goes deeper into, I mean, religion has its own type of mind control, even if it's well intended. Again, it's telling you that things work in this certain way and only in this certain way. If you say these words before bed, you do this before, then this happens, right? So there's not a lot of flexibility. This is how it works. And you're being painted into a box, whatever that box looks like. And it gets smaller and smaller the more sophisticated the players get. And at some point or another, and probably longer ago than we might want to admit or realize, some very clever, darker beings, realized that the human mind in particular was quite vulnerable, and they could do certain things to it because they were very capable of telling it what their reality was, right? To limit it even further. And what they figured out, so we're coming like forward quite a bit in years where science has got involved. Science met occult practices, right? And so you can start getting some really dark energy with curiosity combined with cleverness, combined with like just insidious uh, um, darkness, uh, wanting to know how far they could push the human mind and what it would be capable of. And that's when the precursors to the MK Ultra programs and things like that started to come into place. And they also started to notice that when they incorporated certain drugs, what would happen. And there were a lot of experiments that happened just to see how far they could push somebody in a certain direction, before they kind of sort of got really good at these things, There was a lot of like, let's just give somebody this much of this drug until they completely lose it and see what happens, and then they eventually came up with a recipe and a formula for programming people and programming people to do certain things. And the MK Ultra program has different subsects in it. Like the sex slave programming that so many people who have been trafficked, myself included, there is programming within MK Ultra that is utilized by the programmers, the handlers of sex trafficking, sex people who are sex trafficked. And they have, sometimes a little bit different mechanisms or tools that they use to break that down. And then there's, they have like remote viewing programs that they use certain tools and triggers for. And then the cult programming in and of itself, there's all the mind control that goes along with that. What happens to the psyche, let's talk about what happens to the psyche, is basically they figured out that the psyche will split. If you create enough trauma, the psyche will fracture somehow. And this most of the time meant another personality would be created. So if somebody has enough trauma, just naturally, they will naturally create their own fracture and potentially their own personality. There's different levels of dissociation for somebody to create a whole other personality. There has to be compound trauma. There has to be something repetitive. But people will naturally do it themselves under certain circumstances. And then what these programs figured out was that they could do it themselves through creating in an unnatural process, right? To do this to somebody's mind. And then they could tell that mind what to do from there. But, I think people hear about these things and they think that it's like very cut and dry. And it's like, okay, somebody was just like taken and they were given a bunch of drugs and they were like hypnotized and given these triggers and these code words. And so when they hear this code word, they're going to do this thing and they have no awareness of anything else going on. And that's just what it is. I think that's often the interpretation is like that person could just be absent at any point in time. So they're somehow dangerous, right? But I think what most people don't realize is that the majority of the world is heavily dissociated. And you do not need to be programmed with mind control to check out and do something that you are unconscious of to someone else or in your own life. I see it all the time. And actually, in a lot of situations where we're dealing with generational programming, generational trauma, even before programming gets involved, or like the heavy like MK Ultra programming, you have the programming that goes through the family. Generations of family are taught to program each other. Grooming is a type of programming. It's a type of mind control. Many people want to know, like, oh, well, if all these children are being trafficked, how come we don't notice? Why aren't they saying anything? And it's not just that they're being threatened, or there's fear of retribution, but they literally are gone when these things happen. They are checked out. And sometimes maybe it's because they have another personality and someone told them to check out and start acting another way. And sometimes it's just because this is really fucking traumatic and I'm going to leave my body because I don't want to be present for it. Right. So that happens generation after generation. And then you have parents that treat their children like this. I have people who come to me as clients and they're like, I'm having memories of my mom or my dad doing this certain thing. And like, I just don't understand how the person that loved me and cared for me could have also done these other things. And it's really kind of a mind fuck for us as we try to grasp the reality, right? And so a couple of things are happening. That unconscious world is meeting the conscious because we stored it in an unconscious part of our mind, right? And in our bodies. And then we also have this place where the dissociation is meeting presence. And there's this big cognitive dissonance here, and we're trying to make sense of it and like, where does it meet? And it meets where we all are choosing as much as we can to be present, even if it's painful, even if it's difficult, to work through it, to process it, and understanding that how your mom or your dad did the horrible thing that they did, as well as was the wonderful person, right, they showed up to be, is that these horrible things happened to them and they checked out while they were happening, but then they internalized them and learned to pass it on because something else kind of starts running. And that's when you also get like entity possession and you get things like that where those start running the show and they're feeding off of that person being unconscious, right? Which is like another just like such important reason to deal with your trauma is so that you bring that part present and conscious so that nothing else can be pulling on it or feeding off of it anymore.
Right.
And so, you know, and bring yourself back, bring that part of yourself back that got fractured, wounded. But yeah, I'll pause for a minute because
I mean, wonderful breakdown of all that. Actually, I think you perfectly deconstructed it. And I agree. It all started with an experimental phase. They didn't really know what they were doing or what the results were going to be. And what we're seeing is a byproduct of that as well. Because, you know, they may have perfected it now, but what's happened is, you know, there's this whole experimental group of people that really are kind of lost, you know, and then they're the ones who are maybe even still being used and experimented on because they're already considered gone, or, you know, they're quite literally an asset for the government. But then I think what's happened is they've done all the groundwork, they meaning the controllers, right? And for at large, the humanity is kind of just mind controlling themselves now. It's just taking the ball and ran with it without understanding what has happened. And we're just running these programs now, like you said, it's generational. We're just born into it. And like they don't have to sit there behind closed doors anymore and like puppeteer this whole thing because we're all just doing it ourselves and except for the ones who are waking up from it and then breaking that cycle, breaking that spell, because it is literally a spell and a trance, and it gets in through our weaknesses and traumas, and then it exploits anything that we haven't looked at in any shadow that we haven't looked at, right? So, I mean, there's so much there, and I appreciate that you broke this down because we all experience this stuff in some way, shape, or form, on some level. It's not, you know, it doesn't escape anyone. And I don't care who you think you are. Like, you know, there's always something to look at, and there's always ways that we fall for something, you know, and just bait and switch tactics, whatever. We can go on and on. But I think that the healthy thing is to do is just help people understand that we can recover, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of looking in the mirror and realizing, like, listen, like, the only way I'm going to pull myself out of this, and if I want to be in integrity with what I'm here to do on this planet, like, I have to look at all the darkest shadows, all the darkest steps of my soul and stuff that I've done and I'm not proud of, and then bring that out and bring that to the surface to purge and transmute. So I don't know if you have anything to say to that.
Yeah, I feel like Aaron was going to say something a minute ago too.
I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot there. Yeah, you nailed it though. That's it. And you know, the only way out of this is to heal, as you both pointed out, and is to realize that our true nature is bigger than all of this stuff. But what the system wants and how it operates is to keep humanity perpetually in an unconscious and unhealed state. Those two things go hand in hand, right? Because if you stay unconscious, you can't ever heal because everything's always stayed. Your shadow never gets integrated, you never heal, and you just keep perpetuating the same cycle over and over and over again. And that's how, as you pointed out, the generational stuff happens because you have an unhealed person or people, if it's both parents, perpetuating their own shit onto their children, which then they become very unhealed, and then they perpetuate, and then rinse, repeat until somebody says the buck stops here and actually heals at least to a degree where they're not going to then dump all their shit onto their children or the people in their life who then they traumatize, and then it just keeps going. It always comes back to the self. And, you know, if you want to go the spiritual route of this, it's like, we are all, you know, if you want to like, well, what is God? Is God something outside of me? No, it's within you. And we're all connected to that. We're all an aspect of God. And, you know, Jesus actually said the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven is within you. That was his true teaching, but that got inverted and told, no, he's outside of you and you're just this worthless nothing that needs to like beg for forgiveness and blah, blah, blah. exact inversion of the truth. The truth is God is within you. You're always connected at all times. So the more you can connect to God, to the divine, to source, whatever term you want to call it, it's all the same thing. The more you can connect to that, which is also connecting to your own soul, which means you have to basically face your shit because when you do that, you can't run from your shit because it forces you to deal with it and heal it. And then you basically become whole again. And then you stop unconsciously running these programs so much and reacting from trauma and wounds. But what the matrix that we're in always tries to do is to keep you from that at all costs and to just keep you in reaction mode and keep you perpetuating your own trauma and your own wounds, right? It's literally designed to do that. So, and then also, as you pointed out earlier, you can see the mass psyops that go out because there is an awakening happening. There is a mass awakening and ascension happening. So that's a massive threat to the system. So the system is dying, but it's lashing out because it's dying and because all these things are happening that are a threat. So it's like, oh yeah, all that's evil. It's demonic. It's bad. It tries to get you to resist your own awakening, basically, and to just stay in a box and to stay in the programs.
Yeah.
Well,
So it always comes back to trust yourself, trust your own intuition, trust your heart, like you said. Stop trusting everything, so-called authorities and so-called whatever you want to look at out there. You got to go within, basically.
Yeah, I think that goes for all the ETs too. I mean, we get there, even the divine information that we get. It's important to like receive all the information, but then also come check in here. Because we're the ones that are here and we're the ones that got to do the stuff, and Jesus wasn't the only ascended master. And I'm pretty sure they all pretty much were like, look inside. You already got the answers. They all,
They all said it.
They all said it. And a lot of us are ascended masters. Fuck, man. We came here to come get in these skins, to activate this DNA, to come into these hearts, come into this earth, come back into alignment, and to really like be able to vibrate this place as heaven, for without a better lack of a better wording, is that the utopian, this is meant to be, it is capable of being a real utopian frequency. And I think that it was created with that love and that heart in place, and it was created for souls to come and learn and grow and develop. And I think, a certain amount of darkness offers contrast to do that. And we've just been hijacked to such a certain degree that a lot of us came down. We're like, holy fuck, it's really gotten bad down there. Like, we got to go, we got to go in.
Way too imbalanced to one side, basically.
Right. Yeah. Then we come in and we're like, fuck, this is way more fuck. Then first we forget for a minute and then we're like, oh, this is way more fucked up than I thought. And then we go through all this shitty shit and have to transmute it. And here we are, right? And maybe it's through ourselves, through our own DNA, through our own divine connection and heart space. And
yeah, I agree. I think it's, we're trying to create a world where the darkness can't exist like it has been, and that's what we're all doing by doing that work. But let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some other things that you that you mentioned discussing, especially, Bohemian Grove, which all plays a part in this too. It's not outside of any of this. And, you live near there and you've experienced some things. So what have you seen and, what's going on there?
Yeah, and we can kind of tie the mind control piece in even further because, the interesting thing, and one thing I just wanted to go a little bit further in actually before that is just that, when it comes down to being able to actually help some of these people deprogram that have had some of this heavier programming, I use that source connection, Aaron. That's what we do. It's like the first thing that I make sure they know is that how to connect to that pure source energy. And that's the place we always work from, so that energy is greater than any of the false programs that they receive, because those first false programs are that whoever programmed them is God. So whatever abilities they have to connect, to heal themselves, all belong to that individual or group. Right. So it's like we got to deconstruct that. And or the second program that usually goes in is like there's something wrong with them. There's something wrong and bad about you. So don't worry, we're gonna fix it. I'm God. Right. So it's like all the initial inversion stuff that goes through. So the first thing I usually do with people is like, actually, here's this pure, clear connection with source. We start clearing out all the beliefs that are connected to that. Because then they end up with counter beliefs like God abandoned me, God doesn't love me, the light's not here to support me, or it means that it's something bad is going to happen to them. So just to I feel like it's important to mention some of that because there's a lot of people that talk about deprogramming out there. And I think that that can oftentimes be just as confusing. There's just as many misconceptions about that as there is about mind control itself. And I don't know that there is necessarily like a universal here's your deprogram. I'm going to play this tape backwards for you. Like, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
You have to go into the memories. You have to go into what the programmer was saying to you, what you felt, because they did the things they did to you to make you feel a certain way. They said the things they said to you so that you would believe a certain thing. So you adopt that and that becomes part of the identity, whether it's an identity that they're creating or it's an identity you have about yourself. And that's how we start deconstructing the mind control. It doesn't matter how many, personalities somebody has. They're all through that programming. And they all can be unwound. There is nothing greater than that pure divine energy and that connection that we all have. So
Right. And
Exactly.
thank you for adding that too. That was actually crucial to end the part of the conversation with, because, giving tools and advice on how to break out of this, I think is, we can talk about it all day long, but I like to always leave people with some hope and understanding of that something can be done. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, and also just to say, like, and it can be quite grueling and painful and really, really fucking challenging sometimes. But that's for a reason. We gain more power. We gain more of that presence I'm talking about. And we can be here to stop it for the next generation. We
Right.
can be here to change that vibration for the entire planet. And I always like to remind anybody who's doing that deep work that, like, you're changing it, not just for yourself, but like
Right.
this is a gift for the planet that you're giving.
Right.
And I know it's not easy. I know it's really hard, actually, but you are making a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think that's important too.
It's like the you got to feel it to heal it, right? It's like so many people they're trying to heal it, but they're doing it by avoiding it. and they're literally running from it to these external things or whatever, and they're thinking that's going to magically. It's like, no, you never confronted it. You never got to the root and dealt with it and felt it, because you have to do that. But that's what so many people are terrified of.
Yeah,
because it can be so painful.
It's so
But you
painful.
have to do that to heal it.
Yeah, and I think the piece to remember is that, like, we feel it to heal it and release it.
And release it.
Like, just because
let
you're
that energy
feeling it
move.
doesn't mean you're gonna be stuck in it. Like,
Don't dwell on the energy over and over, and that's another
the
mistake.
point is to let it go, because that's when it becomes like,
Forgiveness.
problems in our bodies and, starts showing up in other ways. So that's another reason it's so important to be able to process this. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I mean, there's a whole other conversation is like
it's a whole other, there's so many.
How it manifests in the physical pain and all that stuff. But just to move things along.
Yeah.
Okay. Bohemian Grove. If somebody doesn't know, what is it, and what have you experienced, and what would you like to share?
Yeah. Well, I've experienced, a lot. I don't know if I want to share all of it, but what I will say is that, it is, it's a place in Northern California. It's, I would say, known sort of more commercially or on the sort of superficial mainstream level as, a place like a good old boys club for elite men to come and gather, people who hold high political office or, very wealthy businessmen, conglomerates, heads of conglomerates, things like this.
Right.
Yeah, people, men particularly of elite stature, who come for, a retreat weekend. That's kind of, how it's known in the mainstream. And there's been people who have attempted to kind of investigate this over the years. Some people have gotten pretty close, but it's
Alex
been.
Alex Jones got that famous video.
He had the
That
famous
was it. Yeah.
video of, a weird ritual being performed. I don't think there was anybody
Mhm.
being sacrificed or raped or
It's a
anything, but
mock. It was a mock sacrifice to Moloch, this giant owl statue, and
right.
they even call that the cremation of care. Like your any empathy or care inside of you is being killed, basically. Cremation of care.
Yeah.
And it's a mock sacrifice. Like, why are they doing a mock sacrifice to like an ancient
Practice, man.
god in this occult ritual? Nothing to see here. Nothing to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, so
Right.
there are levels to which, just kind of like, the Masons, level 1 that goes from
Mhm.
1 to 33. I would say people, in the first 10 levels have no idea what the fuck is going on. They think that they're
Mhm.
just, part of some group,
Club. Yeah.
whatever, club. Yeah.
Whatever.
That as you start moving up, then you start being exposed to things, and it's like, and then at some point you don't really have a choice. You're being initiated, and then before you know it, it's like, oh, okay, this is what this is, right? The 33rd
Right.
degree is like pure evil, right?
Right.
So this is another thing that's kind of like that. It's like you have the upfront thing where it's like, yeah, there are conventions going on, and there's people working and serving food, and there's this going on, and then underneath, I think there's a lot of people who would probably admit to, like, oh, there's, prostitutes and drugs coming in. Then you get another level of people who are like, no, they're fucking kids. And there are people who know it. There's a lot of mental instability all along the area directly connected to it. And there are people who know. There are people who will tell you. You could sit down in a cafe and they will tell you. They're like, no, dark, horrible shit goes on there. Uh, and we know it. And that's why so and so acts so crazy. So there's a certain level of knowing. There was even a counseling center. I don't think it's open anymore, in that area for a really long time, where there were a couple of therapists who actually were working with deprogramming people, like straight up deprogramming people who had had ritual abuse. That's so there is a certain level of knowing, and then there's still such a huge level of denial. And if you asked most people, they'd be like, oh yeah, it's just where they come to vacation. The kinds of things that I can say I definitely saw and experienced there as a child, definitely cult ritual, um, definitely sacrifices, human sacrifices, not just animal, definitely child trafficking. Um, and Yeah, we'll leave it at that right now. Maybe. There's
Yeah.
definitely some other pieces, but, those are things that I saw and experienced firsthand, and definitely, happened there, and I think, obviously I stay really far away from that, but I do think there's a certain level still happening, which is why I feel like something needs to be said, because I think there's a lot of people that feel and felt that, places like the Grove were really being shut down during, all this clearing out that was going on. And, um, I saw busloads, buses going out to the Grove just this summer with darkened windows with a bad vibe, and it's like, like I 'cause those aren't the people with all the money. They come in on helicopters. So what's in the buses with the dark windows?
Right.
It's not it. Yeah, it's not it, and that makes me sick to my stomach. So
Right.
there's definitely some amount of activity still happening out there. Um, and there's definitely a heavy degree of denial still
Right.
about it.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, we don't always wanna perpetuate the darkness, but people need to know, and I think understanding that it's still happening, just like the whole Epstein Island thing, we know somebody, or I know somebody in particular who is working with the Trump administration as far as helping, rescue children, that have been trafficked, and he told me privately, he will not go on camera and say this, but he said the reason they won't talk about it is because Epstein is one of 4 islands, and the other 3 are still in operation today. And many of the people in the administration and surrounding it, on the outskirts of it, are involved. Still, it's still happening. It hasn't just, that was Epstein Island, and Epstein was like the fall guy, right? To make people think that something has been done, and Ghislaine Maxwell and all that stuff. So the only reason I bring that up is because, yeah, it's still happening. Like, I know a lot of people want to think that there's this narrative out there that the whole planet's been cleaned up and we're just in the, scot-free. But I think we're on our way to that, and that's why,
process.
yeah, we're in the process of that. But understanding that it's still there, and not just gaslighting yourself into believing that, oh, we're just past all that now, because we understanding that it's happening can help clear and transmute it.
Absolutely. Bringing awareness to something is always the first step, and that's interesting that the whole Trump administration. I feel like that could be a whole conversation too, because who and what Trump is, whole other question,
Right.
whole other topic. And I can definitely tell you that I saw Trump as a kid, and I have ran into and talked with other people who saw him as a kid not doing good things. So whether that's the same Trump we're seeing now, or whether he's gone through some type of transformation, or
Right.
whatever. But
There's multiple insiders or experiencer people out there that for a while now have been saying there are multiple Trumps, and there's one like you described that's like the bad Trump, and then there's one that's the good Trump that's working with the white hats and the alliance and the benevolent ETs, and then there's one, and then they each have their body doubles and clones or whatever also, and then, so there's like all these multiple that are all somehow able to play Trump in the public eye. I don't know how exactly that works, of which one gets to play which. I don't know how that works, but there's many people that claim that.
Yeah. I don't either. That sounds like something like that, because I definitely had an experience last year where I had a visitation that came in the form of Trump, along with all these light beings right after the election. I didn't even realize it was the day after the election. And I was just meditating, because I just do a morning meditation, and all these giant light beings are showing up. And I'm like, what's going on? And then this Trump face shows up, and there was a lot of messages that came through, but it was very clear to me that he was more than meets the eye, and more than just one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
what I think too.
yeah, it's a whole episode if we really wanted to break it
Right.
down. I mean,
That's a whole
like
episode
the
right
amount of theories out there are, crazy. Like, there's like clones and body doubles, and there's 4 different versions and all this stuff,
and the whole time travel aspect,
the time travel. But it could
PTE
also
aspect.
it could also be, a lot of it could be bullshit, and but maybe there's truth to it, and this reality isn't even what we know. Like, this reality is far beyond anything we've
Well, I already know
comprehended.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, I think understanding all angles of it is healthy. But jumping to any conclusions or giving your power away to anybody at this point is not the answer.
Right.
So
It's not good.
Exactly. And part of the reason I mention it is because it also does kind of segue or feed into, being strategic about our time and everything. What's been coming in lately for me about the next couple months, because it started, kind of a year ago for me after that election and Trump kind of showing up in my face. And, the energy knew me very well, because the first thing it said to me as it's appearing this Trump face is like, I know that you have some safety concerns about me and feelings, so I'm going to stay over here, and gave me some space. And it became pretty clear after a few minutes of conversation, because I worked with what would probably be called the white hats today when I was a kid. And I knew them as the Light Workers Network Alliance when I was a kid. And I left and exited at a certain point, and what they had basically, they was like catching up, and like, because I just been doing my own work, healing, and have stayed pretty out of everything as much as I can, and just focusing on my life. And the message was like, we we continued on. Like, you exited, we understand you needed to do what you needed to do. We continued on, and we're in the White House now, like, and we are making a difference, and things are shifting and changing, and just hold tight. It's going to look pretty freaking weird for the next year. It's not going to look good, but there's going to be good things happening underneath, which is everything that's happened. And the messages lately have been that all of that is reaching a quantum mass, and the next few months we're all going to feel like we're really being squeezed, because the Earth is going through a quantum leap, and there is this major shift happening through the next 3 months, where we are going to be in a different frequency, and all the work that everybody has been doing, it's all going to pay off. It's going to get tighter and tighter for a minute, and it's going to feel like but that's because we are actually going into a new frequency, and it's a frequency of heart. So the more that we can all just sit in our hearts, and in really like our dream for our life, our what we really feel like we would love, right? Like what would put us in the biggest space of love is going to make this transition as easeful as possible. It's just come in there, sit in there, like, whatever all the details are, just come in here and be in this space, and like, what makes that bigger for you? What makes you feel the most happy, most settled, most peaceful, and anchor into that, and clear anything out that's in the way.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Well said. And I think that a number of people, intuitives, channels, whatever, contactees, I've been hearing kind of, just not really publicly so much, but even through some friends and stuff I'm talking to, at large, everyone's getting the feeling that next year is going to be big, and there's going to be a major shift. Like you said, this quantum mass, this quantum leap, that actually makes the most sense. However that manifests in the 3D and reality, that's gonna be interesting. I think we're seeing the precursors for that, and if you're really paying attention and reading between the lines, you can see some moves being made, and there's getting all the ducks in a row for that. Just paying attention to the military in general right now, and all the new aircraft and technology that's being just subtly released, and you can follow these accounts on X, and it's like an entire new wave of this technology that's just gonna be here. They're announcing it now, and it's all gonna be released next year or the year after. We're gonna see everything's gonna be unrecognizable, and then we have Trump and them talking about this redoing doing another World's Fair. And what did they do in the first World's Fair? They introduced, it was a quantum leap back then. So that can only mean to me that that World's Fair is literally going to usher in an entirely new era, maybe the golden age, whatever it is. And I think that's where we all have to come to understand that a lot of forgiveness needs to take place, for the darkness, for the people involved, because like you said, it's generational, and people were born into this. And a lot of times people didn't even have a choice, or they didn't know any better. They're
Right.
so far removed from reality that if we freeze that person in time and hold them and just paint them as the enemy forever, we're not allowing them space to heal from that either. So we have to all, like, forgiveness is the key here, right? And I think that's how we can really help bring all this in.
Yeah, I think and also just to say forgiveness can be tricky. I just want, for everybody out there, who's been through a lot of stuff, it's okay if that's hard. It's okay if that takes a while. There's no time limit on it. There's no pressure. Coming into your heart is, you're just doing the best you can to come into what feels good and feels loving. And sometimes it can be hard as hell to forgive some of the things out there, but also understanding, and and this too, in everybody and everything in its time, but it is poison in our own cup, essentially,
Yeah. Right.
when we hold on to the anger and we hold on to the resentment, but maybe we need something in order for that to clear. Maybe we need to know that something's complete. Maybe there's, maybe some people would call it karma. I would just call it like, some type of some type of connection with that soul that needs to be complete, right? Like, I
Mhm.
release you from,
Yeah.
this XYZ. it's okay, and
Right.
let them have their own timing, their own journey. Maybe it's this lifetime for them, maybe it's next. A lot of the people we come into this life with to do certain work are not the people we're going to end this life doing work with, and that's okay.
Yeah, I actually I'm glad you said that because it's so true. Like people that come into our lives, especially when we're on this journey, right? And we have that soul connection to understand that that might not mean forever, right? We might be here to do something very specific with that person or to learn a lesson with that person and then move on and let go of that. And I think when we hold on to what we want something to be instead of letting it be what it actually is, that's where we create our own disease, right? And then that's where things can go south. So I'm glad you said that, and a lot of things are done unconsciously, and sometimes, this is a personal experience, but something happened to me a few years ago that was very painful, and I was heartbroken, and I had resentment, and I was angry about it, and then I found myself in a situation where I was unconsciously doing something that was breaking someone else's heart, and I found out the hard way, but it was like it kinda showed up in that way, it's like I was on the other side of that, and then I had to experience the other end of it to fully learn the lesson and understand what was happening, and then it allowed me now to go back and forgive the person originally that I considered an enemy or whatever,
Yeah.
so unfortunately, I had to become the quote bad guy, and from on such an unconscious level because I didn't even understand what was happening until it was over, and then it all just became clear to me. But then I was like, oh my gosh, like that's what happened to me. I need to forgive that person.
Yeah.
And then luckily the people involved forgive me and like this beautiful transformation and it's allowed me to step into a new version of myself and transmute something that had been honestly a burden for a long time. And it's just we have to really look at ourselves right now. And I think it's coming up for individuals because it is coming to quantum mass on a global scale, but even in our personal lives. And like we have a chance to take that quantum leap with the collective if we choose
That's
to.
exactly. And the more stuff we clear to being able to be in our heart and really sitting in what our dreams are, because your dreams are that is your divine purpose. That's it. It's that life you imagine, you envision for yourself, you feel, that is your divine purpose. So the more you can clear out of your way to be able to sink into that is gonna, you can ride the wave. You can quantum leap with the earth right now. And the more of us that do that consciously, the more powerful that's going to be for everybody involved and being
Right.
able to really sit in this new frequency. And that's so beautiful that you got that experience and you got to have it so kind of consciously, because for a lot of us with a lot of trauma, we don't necessarily get to have that with our perpetrators. I can't necessarily go to like all of my sex offenders and have, I have to
Right.
work on a soul level and release them. And I say that because I know there's a lot of people out there with a lot of trauma that don't have that option, but I want everybody to know that there are other ways to release that do work, that do
Right.
work. You can release those ties that bind, quote unquote, right?
Right.
Um, and move forward. It doesn't have to be pulling on you forever and
Yeah.
weighing you forever.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's a it's a deep journey, you
Yeah.
know. And there's so many ways. It's different for everyone too. It's different. It's circumstantial. So anything we're saying might not apply to you, but on the highest level, it does. But not everyone's there yet, and that's their own journey and their karma and their lessons and their path. And it's not necessarily always our job to interfere. We can see people sometimes going down the wrong path, and you just want to grab them and shake them out of it. But that's interfering with that lesson that their soul needs.
Their journey.
Yeah.
Right.
Whether they learn it now or next time or whatever in 100
Exactly.
years.
For me,
seeds.
it's always like,
No.
I always see people's deepest traumas, and I'm like, "Ooh, they know what I do. They'll come to me if they want to. When they're
Yeah.
ready, they're waking to their stuff. Um, yeah,
Right.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, you mentioned a few times, having clients, people coming to you. Can you let our audience know what you offer and where they can find you and all that stuff and all that good stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so my website is just at bethrachel.com, so it's very, very easy and straightforward, just my name. I do offer intuitive readings, so if somebody just wants a reading, don't have to go into big processes or traumas, that's definitely available. And then I offer mentorship as well, which is a little bit more of where we do the processing, helping people either step into their divine purpose, step into the role that they really feel that they're here to play, and or doing that trauma healing and going down that path, which ultimately is just clearing the way to be able to step into the purpose and the role they were here to play. And then most recently, I've been just being really guided to lead these break free workshops, which I'm going to start doing, which is a 6-step process to being able to really like decloak everything that's sitting on top of you really being in that dream life and in that heart space, so that you can step in and take advantage of the earth making this quantum leap and do that with her. And so that's going to be coming online. I'm starting to create those and really excited to share that space with people and guide them through that process, combining a lot of tools to make that happen, and really anchor in the embodiment of it.
Right. Right. Well, thank you for that. That link will be below in the description. And, I'm so glad you decided to resurface after, poking your head out a couple years ago, because just this conversation has matured a lot since the last time we've talked. And not that it was a bad talk, but like you can feel the difference in energy. And I appreciate what you're doing. And I think you're going to be a powerhouse moving forward. So just keep it up.
Thanks. That was also like my first conversation and actually sharing publicly any part of my story too. So
Really? Wow. Yeah. So everybody, anyone who's interested, episode 240, if you want to go hear that part of the story, go back. I'm sure it'll be very interesting to, see how we've all grown and evolved since then. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. And
yeah, thank you guys.
and yeah, good luck moving forward. And anyone who's out there that's interested in booking a session, you can do so on her website, and that link is below. And until next time, have a great evening. We love you. Good night.
Love you guys.
Hey guys, Journey to Truth is going to Hawaii. Join us in 2026 for Journey to Truth's first ever vacation conference on the Big Island at the beautiful Queen Emma Community Center in Kona. Enjoy Hawaii as we travel to sacred sites and connect with our Lemurian past and reactivate the land. It's time to get our bodies moving and take a boots on the ground approach to the awakening. We'll also be making a trip to Volcano National Park to pay our respect to Pele, the goddess of fire. We'll then journey to the water for an ocean adventure with our multi-dimensional aquatic family. We'll gear up and head to the harbor as we set sail under the sun for an activating day on the water while we experience the Hawaiian ocean life like never before. Enjoy Hawaiian sunsets and walks on the beach while connecting with soul family and learning a few things from our amazing lineup of speakers. Aloha! Grab your ticket today at journeytotruth.online and join us for this once-in-a-lifetime activating getaway.